different perspective and mood today, and it's raining, so I like the atmosphere of the rain falling. And today I want to talk about something really important. Listen to me carefully. Conspiracy theory is the most potent magical force of the 21st century. This is why it is besmirched, because it has a magical potency that saves your life. And if you don't believe me, this is why you don't have myocarditis, Mother Hydra's babies, or everything. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What if I told you that conspiracy theory was the most potent magical force of the 21st century? That in terms of magical practice, in terms of outcome, ability to control the psychic space, and ultimately to serve yourself in terms of your personal growth and survival, that conspiracy theory was the ultimate occult practice of this era. Now, some of you will sit back in shock, some of you will be laughing, and others will be going, tell us more. Well, for the third ones, this is for you, because the other two, by their reaction of laughing at it or being repulsed by it, have already shown that they are profane and not ready to take the steps of a neophyte in terms of this magical practice. This is why mainstream magic is an abomination. It is conservative, it is globalist, it is normie, it is NPC, and it's playing by rule books that died out at the beginning of the 21st century. Now first, let me explain to you what magic is. Magic is not necessarily bell, book and candle, hocus pocus, dark rituals in a grove late at night. It can be, but it's not. What magic is an art and a science that allows you to take something within your mind and to bring it into reality. By doing so, you create a charge through your nervous system, and this charge in your nervous systems allows you to control the psychic space around your environment and allow you to retrieve results in terms of outcome or desires or will that would otherwise not be available to you. Now, a simple example of magic would be a soccer player on the field. Say you're a professional soccer player playing in the Champions League, and you get the ball and you're on the ball, right? Now, the art part is the ability to read the psychic spaces around you. There's a defender there, there's a forward there, there's a midfield player there. I can't play it to him, he'll be offside. So you're controlling the psychic space through the art in your head, right? The science is dribbling the ball, and you know, when a defender comes to try and take it off you, you go around him, this kind of thing. That's the science part. And when he finds a player in position to play to, say he's a midfield player and he sees a forward player in an onside position, or coming in, or determining he's coming forward but still on an onside position because he's evaluating a kind of a triangulation between, say, two defenders and his own forward, he plays the ball forward. That's the release of the charge. He releases the charge and he creates a potential that never existed in the universe before. The player on the other, in this particular situation, not in, you know, players have kicked balls, made passes off, but in this particular situation, he's released the charge, and just say the forward gets it, scores a goal, outcome. So the art, the science, the magical charge released, the outcome, the will. And that's a simple description of magic. It's the control of the psychic space around you, and the ability to make that psychic space control work towards achieving your outcome. Now, as you know, I've written a book on magic called Sorcery, the Invocation of Strangeness, and I've covered magic in all my books going right back to Puzzling People, to my latest book with Neil MacDonald on Bergenier Saunier, The Priest Wizard of Rennes-le-Chateau. In Puzzling People, a magical act that I described in that would be if you were dealing with a psychopath in the workplace, get a book, a well-known and credible books on psychopathy, such as Without Conscience by Robert Hare, and leave them lying on your desk. Read them at lunchtime, and don't go around judging people. Let the psychopathic individual see that you're onto them. You are now controlling the psychic space in a position that you didn't before. Another thing too is, I said, if you're being tormented by them in work, go into the bathroom and scream. Don't let them break. Don't break in front of them, because if you break in front of them, they're controlling the psychic space, right? So how does this bring us to conspiracy theorists? Well, first of all, sort of normie individuals that are aware of my existence. I'm not well known at all, but the ones that might come across me through, progressive politics, they'll call me a conspiracy theorist, as if I'm supposed to run from that tag. No, I fully embrace it. I actually am proud of it, and I think the rest of you should be as well. Now, of course, a conspiracy theorist and a truther is two different things. A conspiracy theorist will look into things that are narratives or break from the mainstream narrative, an alternative viewpoint to something, but they will examine it in tandem with the mainstream story, come together, find anomalies down the middle, and there's something not right here. That's a conspiracy theorist. A truther is someone who believes the last video they've seen. That the last flat earth video they've seen, and then they believe that until they see the next one. This is a truther. They have no discernment. They can't sit back, well, except my audience, because we're the tribe. They sit back, and they can't sit back and discern and say, well, it's just bullshit. They just automatically believe it, and then they share the video on social media. Now, over the years, many people have come up to me and said to me, Thomas, I found out about this, that, and the other, and I went to tell my friends and my parents and my wife about it, and they went, shock, or else your workmates ridiculed you and laughed at you. And then they take that as a terribly negative thing. Wow, I've been discarded from, I've been shunned, I've been an outsider, I feel like a fool. But what they've actually done is they've taken control of the psychic space. So you walk up to someone and you say, all during the Rona that happened to me, they'd say to me in the supermarket, well, did you get your needlecraft yet? And I says, no, I'm not getting it. Why not? Because I don't trust it, it's not fully tested. Now, I wasn't lying, I was telling the truth. But their reaction was me controlling the psychic space, because I took them out of their imaginary comfort zone and brought them into a place where they couldn't handle it. That is not my problem. That is their problem. And the same thing with two people who laugh at conspiracy theorists within reason. Now, Don Jolly, a completely unfunny comedian from who about 20 years ago had a minor career walking around with a big phone, has started to try and produce a relevant nature to his existence at this point. Is going after conspiracy theorists, and I have absolutely no problem with that, except he plays an appalling dishonest trick by taking a conspiracy theory that no one has ever heard of, that the country of Finland doesn't exist, and then tried to make that every person who's interested in conspiracy doesn't believe that Finland exists. And that's an appalling, dishonest form of black magic. Just like the propaganda we were subject to during the lockdowns and everything else were black magic. They were used to control the psychic space of society based on nothing. Now, those of us who were the lunatics during that period, who followed the Rona Chronicles and others who didn't even know about me, who said, hold on a second, I'm not doing this. They were 3 clicks away from looking at peer-reviewed documents that these types of needlecrafts were not safe, and they said, I'm going to hold out. I'm not doing this. You control the psychic space at that moment, okay? And you're alive today because of it. You can hold your children in your arms because of it. You can kiss your loved ones. You can enjoy art, music, the pleasure of life because you said, I don't trust it. And by going, I don't trust it, you released a magical charge that you instantly controlled your own psychic space. This is why they're jealous of us. The reaction towards conspiracy theorists is a reaction towards people who have a fortitude and a personal strength. Now, I'm talking about the crazy throofers now. I'm talking about the old-fashioned, traditional, like me, who's been interested in conspiracy theory long before Agent Scully met Agent Mulder on TV. I can remember back in the early 80s, me and my friends, and they were all avant-garde band people, we would constantly spoke about the Manson stuff. We constantly spoke about JFK. We knew all about the relationship between Jim Morrison and his father and the Vietnam War. It was normal discourse among regular people. It was only after 9/11 that the whole attack on, tinfoilers happened. Now, how someone, you may ask yourself, look, I'm looking back now at the time of the Rona, and how seeing Stephen Colbert, the vaccine dance, the needlecraft dance, and all this other stuff, this madness we were associated with, how come the normies don't see it? Because they're not in control of their literal brains. See, when you take control of the psychic space, you're actually writing new neural partitions on your brain. They're actually acting upon your ability to maintain that psychic space. But when you're impacted upon by propaganda, black magic, and bullying at work or anything like that, you are put into a kind of state of shock where your memory banks are written off and you rewrite new memories. And that's what's happened with the normies. They don't remember banging the pots. They don't remember this stuff. They don't remember the hysteria. They don't remember calling up and saying their neighbors should be sent to the gas chambers. They don't remember this because they've written new neural partitions to do this. And another thing too, when you suddenly say to someone, something, I don't believe the whole story about what's going on in, say, Israel and Iran right now. The reaction has an actual neurological effect. There are things in the brain called mirror neurons, and they're really what the word empathy means. The word empathy doesn't mean you love someone. It means that's compassion or you care about someone. Empathy means a common understanding between groups. And when you said that, their mirror neurons suddenly switch off and they're not feeling the bond with you anymore. And that's where that sense of loss comes from. Again, if someone is shocked, someone walks up to me tomorrow and said, and I get it all the time, they say things to me like, the moon landings never happened, and I said, no, they did. How do you know? You mean they played golf on the moon? That's exactly the same as a normie who goes, oh, wear your tinfoil hat. No, I fucking studied the stuff. I went through all the engineering documents, okay? I was skeptical at one point. I looked deeply into it. They went, the evidence is overwhelming. And that's it. That's the end of it. Now, the reaction of a truther going to me, oh, Nixon called on a land, the usual tropes that they haven't got a clue what they're talking about. Nixon called on a landline, or, they played golf, see how the golf game on the moon was going. That's exactly the same as a normie going, where's your tinfoil hat? It's because, and what does that mean? What does that mean when that happens? Now, they've lost control of their own psychic space. So one of the things that, I'm sorry I never made this video years ago, because it never bothered me personally. When someone says to me, where's your tinfoil hat? I go, at home in the wardrobe. I don't care. I just don't care. I'm not here to validate other people's inclinations. I don't exist for that reason. I'm here to try and make my way through this life to meet as many interesting, nice people as possible and hopefully share a bond with them that we can all get through this shit unscathed at the end of the day, as best we can. Otherwise, couldn't give a fuck. Couldn't give a monkeys, okay? Now, You have to remember when someone goes to you, what are you on about? Where's your tinfoil hat? That they're the ones that are now in lost control, not you. And when you go, oh, I wish I never said that, you've just lost control of your psychic state. But if you go, well, that's just how I feel, and walk away. Now, I've went up to many people that over the years you would call normies, and I would mention things to them, and they'd go, well, what do you mean? And I say, well, there's certain things that don't make sense about this situation. And they go, I never heard that before. And I says, yeah, if you look at this, and I go, yeah, why? Whatever, all right. It wouldn't be something and that's normal behaviour. Nobody has lost control of the psychic space at that point. When they attack you or call you a tinfoil hatter, or a truther calls you, a globetard, they're the ones who've lost control of the psychic space, because they can't have a debate with you, or they can't even say, oh, fair enough, that's what you believe. There's lots of people I know that still think the moon landing is a hoax, and they go, well, I don't really believe it, I still think it's a hoax. And that's healthy, that's normal. I don't try to badger them, and they don't try to badger me. That's normal. Both have control of their psychic space. When anyone's hysterical, they've lost complete control of their psychic space. When someone runs a smear campaign, that's absolute complete psychic space failure. You've complete, and that's what they were doing to all the people who were, like us, who didn't want to get the needlecraft. They became hysterical because they'd lost control of us. Now remember that, they lost control of us. Now, this is going to become a much more important thing for me going forward. And I hope some of you, or many of you, can join me on this thing. I have been trying to build a magical process for the restoration of this country, to undo all the damage that's been done to it by politicians, globalists, NGOs, civil servants, corporations. Now, I know that me and my friends and I, don't have the ability to do it in any real way. Yeah, we can run social media very effectively, I might add. We can do all kinds of other things, but ultimately the corridors of power are not accessible to us in the current scheme of things, in the current psychic space. So what we do is we change the psychic space completely. Now, I've been running 2 initiatives lately with the so-called people who claim to be patriots. Stop calling politicians in Ireland by their first names. That is an enormous way to control the psychic space, because he knows that when you're calling him by his first name, even if you hate him, he owns you as his pet monkey. You still think on some level he's your mate, and he hates your absolute guts, and he wants to destroy you and replace you with a cheaper model. You call them by their second name or by their formal title. Minister this, minister that, deputy this, okay? Some of you have started to finally see that, but I see too many. Leo Martin, Simon, Leo Martin. I see too many of that around. You are not in control of the psychic space if you behave that way. Another one is giving up on exterior altruism. We don't give a shit what goes on in other parts of the world, be it Palestine or Ukraine. We give a shit what goes on the land that we live on. And a huge part of this, and I've started this kind of discussion the other day, is that we're going to turn ERA into a psychic space that we control, because we will set the parameters of that psychic space. We won't abide by democracy. We won't abide by the zeitgeist, the mainstream media. We will cut out all the middlemen in between and go directly to source, the goddess Eru, upon the land on which we sit and stand. Route 1. If we control the psychic, if we develop a paradigm in Ireland, and you can do it in your own country with your own archetypes, but I'm talking about Ireland here. We develop a paradigm within the psychic space that we create in terms of relating to this. Like, I'm absolutely convinced that those of us who are standing up against the globalists in Ireland right now, we are the Tuatha De Danann. The ancestral codes have been unlocked, and I really do now believe that one of the reasons they rushed the needlecraft out with the DNA changes in them was to undo these emerging ancestral codes that we're switching on in the gene sequences. And that's why there's numerous videos from me from 2019 saying they're going to do something with genetics, possibly genetically modify a disease. I said E. coli, but that was the example. I didn't know about the other one at that time, the big C. I didn't know about that, little C we're going to call him. And that was not me being a seer. That was me from years of this kind of magical thinking, and not in the psychiatric sense, but in the actual sense of everything is an interrelated archetype node, synchronistic connection point, that you start to read the environment like an animal in the wild reads the environment. So an animal in the wild gets the impression that there's probably a predator behind that fence. I don't know why. They pick up on senses. The same thing with me in 2019. There's something coming. I'm very interested in the Committee on Public Safety. I made a video about that in revolutionary France, Robespierre. I'm very interested in these gene splicing technologies that I made a video about. They watch it, it's coming. I warned about something called a coronal mass injection. This was not me being a prophet. This was not me being a seer. This was years of training my psychic spaces, not watching mainstream news, not being worried by being called a conspiracy theorist. And that gave me a control of the situation that I was able to help us all, along with others, during the time of the lockdowns and the Rona. That's not prophecy, that's not a religion, that's a psychic state that's purely part of nature and consciousness in the natural world, that can be scientifically validated in every way, if you want to go down that route. Or else you just have no ethics and you accept that it's a fact like I have. Now, so control of your psychic space is very important. Now, one of the things, you have to be aware of is that you owe nobody nothing except yourself and your own loved ones. And your loved ones don't live in Kiev, and they don't live in Tel Aviv, and they don't live in Gaza. Well, unless they really do, but otherwise they don't. So when you give your psychic energy to something in the Middle East or something in Eastern Europe, what you're doing is you're depleting the psychic energy that you need for here. Remember Bob Geldof, Live Aid? Just give me the fucking money. You don't, you have to control the psychic space around you. And you won't do that by sticking up a flag of a foreign country on your profile pic or waving one. You've lost control of the psychic space that you need. So you cannot serve two masters in this regard. You have to be focused. This is the thing with the occult and magic, is you have to have extreme focus. You have to sit down and you take out a book and write down how I'm going to do it. What you're doing is you're attenuating your nervous system. You're trimming the frequencies down in your nervous system to give you what you want. And this is what my whole point I want to get across with the Mother Era. I'm not calling it Ireland anymore. I'm calling it Era. Because it's beyond politics and religious. It goes to the very heart of this nation. Not even the nation, it is landmass. It's nothing to do with political ideologies. It's to create a new psychic space beyond all that. And when you control the psychic space beyond all that, nothing can encroach upon it. Because they don't have the battle plan that you're working with. They don't have the espionage. This is why they're desperate to get you into the electoral system, into the mainstream media. Because once you enter into their psychic space, you don't have a chance. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people like John Waters running for election and a few other people. I think it's a very good way of testing the grounds, and also it's a way of it's like Brexit. It's the real reading of the people. Now, popularism is the will of the people. This is why it's the feelings and the emotions and the inclinations of the people. This is why politicians absolutely despise it and want to destroy it. Now, when you control the psychic space more effectively, you develop a sense of charisma. And this charisma is very appealing to other people. They say, I like the cut of her jib. I like the way she talks. I like the way she holds herself. I'd like to be her friend. I like him. He's all right. I like the way he talks. He doesn't give a shit. He's all right. He seems to know what he's talking about. She seems to know. It creates a charismatic bond. And then what happens then, at those of us, and why I just call it the tribe because it's a handy name, we really do what we have, we really do hold, because our mirror neurons start firing together, and we really do become like a tribe, and we really do develop as a sense of security. Like, I know I keep bringing it back to, do you remember that the magical ritual involving the egg? Corona will lose its shine by April 9. Remember that? Do you remember, as so many people said to me, for the first time in months, when the sound of that egg went into the water and that plopping sound, it was the first time I felt I was actually in control again during all this madness. And that's why I did it. To break, because it's the same thing. Suppose you love someone and they suddenly dump you, okay? And you still have all these horrible feelings of like what's going on, and your emotions are all over the place. It happened to me. The first time it happened to me, I was 18, and I literally was shaking when it happened because I wasn't expecting it. It came out of nowhere, and then I got the usual thing. Well, can we still be friends? And I said yes, because I was still young and still learning the dynamics of, I didn't understand the power of ghosting, and I did, or no contact ever again. I was still kind of young and naive, and then I will never forget the day her name was Janet, and she called me up at work, and she goes, "How are you?" And I hung the phone up. Now, when I hung the phone up, oh my God, I will never forget the release of endorphins in me. I suddenly felt amazing. Not because I got you, bitch. It was nothing like that. It was because my charismatic state had suddenly restored as I had taken control of the psychic space. I had taken control of the psychic space. And by doing so, I was then able to move on in life. This is why by that act of ghosting, by that refusal to say no, it wasn't until many years later I realized why I felt so wonderful and amazing when I just hung the phone up. No drama. Just put the phone down. No, leave me alone. I think that's what I always say. It does. Just leave me in peace. Leave me alone. This puts you back in control. Now, if they're a pathological individual, they go crazy when you do that. If they're normal, they'll just walk away. Thankfully, she just did. So, but this is how we have to be with, because I years later discovered that it restores your, not only your psychic space, but it also restores your hormonal balance, your endorphin levels, all these kinds of things, your adrenaline levels, and your physiology starts to bond, and suddenly the broken heart thing vanishes. It doesn't happen like that, but because you're at the psychic level, you know you're back in control, just like when the sound of the egg went in the waters. We have to do this for everything now. And conspiracy theory is a huge part of this. When we look at these videos now and see the absurdity and madness of that whole period, don't you feel like you can walk on air? That you look at yourself and you say in the mirror and go, I avoided all that. The greatest black magic spell in history, and I was defeated by it. Now, I was watching Naomi Wolf on Tucker Carlson, and she was talking about this. She was going on about this, and like all her friends abandoning her and leaving her, and then not one of them had ever said sorry, and they never will say sorry. Don't ever ask for sorry. There's no atonement. This is why we have punishment in this world, because the average person doesn't seem to understand the concept of atonement in any form. This is why I'm a big fan of ghosting and shunning and no contact ever again, because you're never going to get that moment of like resolve. It's not going to happen. That only happens to politicians and peace deals and stuff. So what I want to do is start a conversation to create something like a document that will be an ode to Mother Eru, that people who are living in Ireland, who are Irish people, it doesn't matter where their background is, once they're Irish people, they've signed an oath of symbolic motherhood with the goddess Eru. It doesn't matter if they're Christians or anything else. No, I'm asking to give it. No, I'm not saying it's a pagan only thing. It's also an insurance fact that religious fanatics, be they Christian or anything else, they're not going to sign a document that asks for devotion to the mother goddess of this land. They think the Virgin Mary, who was married to a cuckold named Joseph, an Arab woman, is the goddess of Ireland. That's what they took away Eru and gave us instead. And we've got to. This will give us the psychic space beyond the conventions of politics and everything else. This will give us the psychic space beyond their game and put us in our own game. And I want this to work. I want this to be serious. I want this. I don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but I want an actual document, some beautifully illustrated document on a large parchment with some Celtic symbols on them, Gaelic symbols on them, like the St. Bridget's cross diagonally, and Irish topography, Gaelic topography. In Irish and English, a very simple oath to the goddess Eru as our symbolic mother. And it has to be done in a ritual form. It has to be done properly. I don't want a bunch of some arsehole with a guitar on a hill. It needs to be something like at a sacred place like Clonmacnoise that's applicable on the Escarida, where the old road that crossed Ireland from ancient times right through to today. Something like that. And I don't want an arsehole with a guitar going, singing, some rebel song or something. That's so twee and that's pure gash. It's something like an uilleann piper playing, not a requiem mass, a rebirth, a mass for Eru restored. Maybe the thing read out by a child at the spot, with some like many as go as possible. What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that. Everything's right with that. The idea of controlling that, and it'll be also this. It'll be said. It'll be put on a PDF that people all around the world can sign out of Irish ancestry, or even people who are not of Irish ancestry that love Ireland, can sign that, print this thing out and put it on their wall, and say, that's what I am. That's where I come from. I come from an ancient land named after an ancient goddess that no political system, no ideology, no nothing can interfere upon. It's beyond all that. It existed before them, and we're resurrecting her, and we are the Tuatha De Danann. And the enemies, the globalists, the purple-haired freaks, they're all the Fomorians. We're back to this is the third battle of Moytura. This is the third battle of Moytura. And we have to, once again, control the psychic space and defeat the Fomorians in this country. And you have a similar battle in your own land as well. And it's not for, Wiccans with wands and shit like that, or cosplay druids and things like that. It's for ordinary Irish people to develop a sacred bond with their land. And those who are of the diaspora, a sacred bond. We have to make the diaspora feel that this is their land too. No, it's their land. We want them coming here. We want them. We want them coming here and living here. Whether they're from England, Australia, Canada, America, or having a feeling, a real emotional feeling. They love America, they love Canada, they love Australia, they love England, they love Scotland, but they have a special identity with Ireland. We have not ever properly capitalised. Well, the governments here never wanted it, because all the gombeans and gangsters here didn't want any outsiders going, what exactly are you doing in Ireland? We have to be the group, the Mother Eru, the tribe of Mother Eru, the Tuatha De Danann restored, to bring the diaspora in onto this conversation with this land. And we'll do it. We're already there. We're already here. It's only a matter, we've already got the line between A to Z. All we have to do is move towards Z. And a symbolic oath of devotion to the land of Ireland, Era, the mother goddess Eru is the answer. I'm convinced of it. Some people will say, isn't that twee? Isn't that far right, oh, they don't embrace diversity. I don't care. I don't care. We shouldn't care. We just like being called a conspiracy theorist. You realize the magical power of that when you say, yeah, okay, I am. So what? What are you going to do about it? Same thing as like, oh, they're going backward. You know, they're going back to like, you know, the Gaelic League and so on. Yeah. Because the Gaelic League achieved amazing things. And we can do better. We can do better because we have a communicative aspect that's bigger. And we also understand the stakes we're playing for now. They're already dying around us. I see them. We saw like politicians in Ireland all suddenly leaving office. They had the general meeting of the biggest so-called, allegedly the biggest political party here. I can get more people into a room now. They are all looking depleted and destroyed. Our enemies are demoralized because they've been found out. Now we build a new reality beyond them. And this goes on in every country. I know I can only speak for Ireland. We did it during, and the proof of the pudding is, we did it during the Rona. Didn't we? We did it, sitting here, we did it during the Rona. We did it. And we're not worried about Mother Hydra's babies inside us. We're not worried about dying of coincidence or dying of climate change. It's all of a sudden. Or we're not worried about doctors being baffled. Well, there's the proof in the pudding that when you create a psychic space, you take control. And the first part of that is when someone calls you a conspiracy theorist or some other name, you go, yeah, maybe, okay, I don't care. It's like putting the phone down on the person who broke your heart.